problem.
Welcome to Mattowarrior's Metal Madness.
This episode of Mattowarrior's Metal Madness was recorded on Sunday, January 29th, so some of the references might be dated to that time, including the news.
It's time for the metal news, of course. This is Mattowarrior's Metal Madness, and it's been quite a while since I've done an episode. Today, we're going to do... That's the new beginning of the podcast. That's what that music means. So today we're going to have an interview with a black metal project, but first we'll get to the news here. A black metal band project. But speaking of that, you'll see in the news. So, all right, I'm going to read Blabbermouth, the front page. That's what I traditionally do, so I'll do that. In this moment is preparing to record a studio album. Oh, I've never even heard that band. So, Sortilege to release new album Apocalypso. Is that a concept album about the Mel Gibson movie from years back? I'm going to record a concept album about, like, Hudson Hawk. It's seriously, like, I want to do, like, a film like metal musical, like Sabotage about Hudson Hawk. That would be awesome. If you know what movie I'm talking about from the early 90s. Dating myself here, but I suggest any younger person should watch that movie. Anybody should watch that movie. It's a great movie, underrated. So, it's really funny, too. It's unintentionally and intentionally. Iron Maiden's Bruce Dickinson reflects on the iconic Boeing 747 plane before final aircraft is delivered. Okay. Stephen Pearcy performs Rat. Soulfly presented with Key to City by Albuquerque's Metalhead Mayor. Oh, that's cool, you know. All right, here we go with some more controversial, more edgy stuff. If you don't mind me, I've been pretty high on caffeine and just a lot of things going on in my life, so it's pretty edgy, like pretty on the edge, not in a bad way necessarily. I do have a little bit of a headache though, but anyways. Swedish pop star Zara Larsson criticized for wearing dress containing piece of Burzum artwork. Okay, well, I know Varg Vikernes would not be happy with my ancestry, and you probably want me dead, probably to some extent, considering my ancestry. That said, I think his music's great. Especially the first classic black metal, Norwegian albums from like 91, 92, 93, whatever, 94. People, I don't know. I didn't know that he was canceled by. His music was canceled. I didn't know that. I didn't know, like, you couldn't wear a shirt. But let's take a look at this article. Let's see. Swedish pop star Zara Larsson has been banned for wearing a dress containing a piece of a t-shirt. Oh my God, a piece of a t-shirt. She's the Third Reich's gonna rise any moment again. Some model wore a part of a shirt, which, strangely enough, Christian Vikernes, or I know he doesn't like being called that, so I'm going to call him that just for fun. Christian Vikernes, Christian Vark. I like how Blabbermouth did this. It's pretty funny. Okay, so he actually there was a D&D module that he based. I don't even know I think this might be the same one if I'm looking at it right. No, it's Philosophem, which is actually a really good album. It's probably my favorite one. One thing about that album is that I go to sleep to it sometimes. It's like, wow, you have these dreams and stuff. It's pretty cool. I highly recommend it. I really like that album. I actually really do like his music overall. I used to hate it. And she's like, oopsie, I had no idea. I just thought my clothes looked cool. It was unfortunate. And to clarify, I wasn't wearing a Burzum shirt. It just had it. I don't know, whatever. It's like ridiculous. Why, of all the things that people want to focus on, I mean, it's just so silly. And then the ridiculous incel comments here. I'm just gonna make it fun. I used to comment on Blabbermouth all the time. I'm trying to stay away from social media for the most part in a lot of ways right now, like Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that. I want to live in real life. I'm kind of going like retro. I wouldn't call it like retro 2000s, like, kind of live like that a little bit more. And man, I hope this microphone is working out all right here. I just bumped it. So, yeah, I mean, I am kind of doing that lately because I got so sick of it. It's for a lot of different reasons. I'm not going to go into it, and something did trigger it, I'll admit, like a week or two ago, but I'm not going to go into why. I didn't delete my profiles on any social media. I just decided that I wanted to go a little different with things and just like focus on other things in life, for a while, and just like give myself a clean break from that. I don't want to be on there. Vince Neil performs Motley Crue classics. I don't know why. Are they our tour though? Why is he doing that? Coachella. That's funny. Coachella, California. Ted Nugent. We can beat the devil by praying, and getting back to God. All right, so I'm gonna admit something. I really the cover band that I'm playing with is playing a Ted Nugent song. We decided to do it just kind of like because it's funny, like unintentionally in a way, but like I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't share that on this podcast, but it's like, okay, so it's maybe to make a point in a way, like about censorship or whatever, but I happen to like his music. I like the Amboy Dukes a lot. I got like the Nuggets compilation years back. I mean, yeah, you could separate. He has a lot of weird ideas and he's done a lot of weird shit. So, but you can look at a lot of rockers and people will excuse, say, someone that's done sketchy stuff in the 70s, especially David Bowie or Lemmy, anybody that's like not a loudmouth about their politics, and then Ted Nugent all of a sudden is focused on for some reason. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. Dream Theater's John Petrucci on winning first Grammy. It was a surreal moment. Okay, this picture of him is really strange. Disturbed's David Donegan says Divisive's album more aggressive sound came naturally. I don't know. Axl Rose, Glenn Matlock. Oh yeah. Sex Pistols bassist Glenn Matlock to release Consequences Coming solo album in April. I listen to the song. It's okay. It's all right. I mean, he did write the songs for the Sex Pistols pretty much. I mean, a lot of the progressions and riffs and stuff. They only wrote 2 or 3 songs after he left, and they had an whole album. I mean, I don't know what happened to the Sex Pistols by only released 1 album. It's kind of strange. Speaking of that, there's a YouTube channel called Circle of Tone, which I quite like. I like the guy; he's a good producer and stuff. But he's trying to claim in a video that he doesn't think that Steve Jones played all the guitars on Nevermind the Bollocks, which I think is a bunch of bollocks, because I've watched probably about 20 or 30 different live things from the Sex Pistols and listened to a bunch of demos and stuff, and even like rehearsal stuff, and he can definitely play that tight live. It's just whatever was going on with them back in the day, I don't know what it was. Like, for example, in Winterland, their last show, he kept going out of tune. I don't know. I think it was Malcolm McLaren just didn't give them the money for like proper roadies, and there was just falling apart. And I think that's why there's so many sloppy performances. Plus a lot of drugs, of course, too, like with Sid and stuff. But I don't know. But whatever. Cynic played first concert in 8 years. That's cool. Richie Faulkner's Elegant Weapons project will surprise people, says Ronnie Romero. Okay. Jeff Young and David Ellefson couldn't care less about Dave Mustaine's reaction to Kings of Thrash. I'm going to see that, actually, that Kings of Thrash. I'm quite excited because I really do like So Far, So Good, So What. It was actually the first vinyl of Megadeth I ever bought. I think it was a cutout. I bought it used at this record store. And I remember specifically it was like this winter. It was in the winter and Christmas. All right, Jesus Christ. I'm going to date myself a little bit. Christmas Vacation was playing in the theater, and I went by myself. I was a kid. And I remember, like, I think it was that same day I bought that. It was really weird. But anyways, that's just a little, little anecdotal story there. Skid Row singer Eric Gronwall releases his cover of Judas Priest's Painkiller, which is pretty good. I like it. I was waiting for him to do Priest. I really like him in Heat. That's one of my favorite bands, actually, is Heat. But he's not in Heat anymore. Dave Lombardo's Venom Morris project shares new song, Drowning Emotion. Okay. He's done a lot of projects. It's cool. Soulfly. Oh, this Journey debacle, whatever. They reunited on stage, even though they're like suing each other. Neil Scone and Jonathan Cain. It's pretty funny. Paul Stanley, blah blah blah, whatever. Okay, stop lip syncing. That's my news. Mattowarrior. Paul Stanley should stop lip syncing, please. Yours truly. Jeff Scott Soto doesn't think third Sons of Apollo album will arrive before 2025. I actually like them. I bought their first album. I like them. I like Jeff Scott Soto. And my band I'm in right now did do a Malmsteen cover, but we stopped doing it for, like, vocals were a little hard for the vocalist to do and stuff because it's a higher range. Or it's a different kind of range, So we may reintroduce it, with more practice and stuff. D. Snyder, there are no more plans for Twisted Sister. Sure, there aren't. Once the promoters call. Of course there will be. The cynic. Ronnie Romero says he contemplates suicide over critiques of his Rainbow performances. Jesus Christ, dude. That's terrible. Hanoi Rocks announces 40th anniversary redo release of Oriental Beat. Okay, that's just what it's called. I know it's a verboten word now to say, but I said it because that's what the headline said. Hanoi Rocks are pretty decent. It's kind of like a modern for the time, New York Dolls or something. Influenced Guns N' Roses and a bunch of bands. To Pay Houston featuring Lars Ulrich's son. Okay, I heard it's whatever. It's okay. I shouldn't say whatever. That's pretty dismissive. I'm sorry. I apologize for being a little snarky. I've been listening to a lot of punk, so I'm going to be a little snarky this episode because I'm going to listen to a lot of punk. Just listen to the First Damned album again because I had bought it like 10 years ago or something. I'm like, wow, this is good because I didn't got into like the garage, like 60s bands and stuff more off in the last couple of years too, so it kind of fit that. Papa Roach, no. Job for a Cowboy, there. Stone Temple Pilots, Tim Owens. Oh, this is funny. Tim Ripper Owens fires back at online trolls. You have to tear people tear you down for no reason. Well, get off the internet then. Why do you have to be on all this crap? You could pay someone to do that too. There's a bunch of celebrities that actually pay people to be online for you. I'm not saying it's a celebrity. Maybe he can't. He probably is not making as much money as we think. He's not like super rich, but he could just like have someone like volunteer once a week or something, or pay him $50 a month or something to go on social media once in a while and check out what's going on. You don't have to be on social media. Why do people think they have to? Because they get the brain chemicals going because that's what they're doing. The technocracy. the Great Reset. No, I'm just kidding. The WEF. No. Michael Sweet would certainly pray about hypothetical King Diamond elaboration. Well, that's interesting. I'm going to read it. How's that sound? During a January 24th appearance, on Eddie Trunk, I'm just going to say that. There's a longer title. He met King Diamond. They took a picture. Okay, he was a nice guy, blah, blah, blah. I do pray about it. Okay, so he prays about it. Whatever. Okay, it's just like, yeah, okay, that's, okay, whatever. I don't care. That's kind of funny, though. He prays about everything he says in the article. So, Overkill, that's cool. They're really good live. Dave Navarro, Jane's Addiction. I don't know. All right, here's some interesting news. I'll go back to the Jane's Addiction thing. I just, I was a fan growing up a little bit, but like Perry Farrell is just, so pretentious. My God, oh God, just, and I know he influenced like a lot of stuff like that happened since, but like so pretentious, such a just, and one thing I hate about the '90s, like I said before in this podcast, is like, I'm a heroin addict who reads 18th century or 19th century poetry. I'm so cool. I'm so intelligent. Look at me. I don't play a shred guitar solo, but I can play like 3 chords and it's kind of like actually Johnny Rotten was talking about the New York punk scene about like that. It's pretty funny, even though there's a lot of hypocrisy there too. But the '90s bothered me for their smugness. That's one of the things. But I like a lot of the music. Don't get me wrong. Kiss officially releases only known Soundborn recording with guitarist Mark St. John. Now, this is the thing about Kiss and this like soundboard stuff. This is one of the things I really think is cool. I really like these live things they're doing. I think it's awesome. I think more bands should do that because there's like a treasure trove of all these shows that it's like having another live album. Obviously, well, duh, of course it is. But I think it's really cool. I like the idea of releasing like these old bands releasing all these recordings. Like like one of the first bands to do that, with like these '60s bands like the Doors. They would release all these like live albums and stuff, and like had a club that you can join and stuff to get them and all this stuff. And I think it's really cool. Mark St. John was pretty good. Controversial guitarist to some extent. He came right after Vinnie Vincent. And then there was very little of his like live footage. He quit for some kind of injury or some kind of condition he had. And then Bruce Kulick joined. But it might be interesting to hear because he had a unique take on the solos and so that's why I think it's cool to have these live albums like that. I think more bands should do that. I would love to hear more Somewhere in Time, Iron Maiden live, or something like that, or just weird like album shows that bands never release, because they, they're whatever album they're on, they just I don't know. It's just like different types of stuff, Anyway, I sounded like Tommy Lee just saying that. I was kidding. Molly Cruz, Tommy Lee guests on new single, whatever. I don't even know. Atreyu, Twisted Sister, Tom Morello, Maneskin. Okay. Here's an interesting piece of news. Metal Church recruits Ross the Boss and Let Us Pray vocalist Mark Lopez. That's pretty cool. I don't know how they're gonna configure that, but I like Metal Church. I like Manowar and Ross the Boss a lot. Interesting. That's actually really interesting. I've criticized Manowar a lot, like modern Manowar, because of the choices they've made and stuff on my YouTube channel. And it's probably one of my biggest videos, honestly. But I've never criticized Ross the Boss because he's continued to just do so much music and so much stuff, and he really is just like one of the people that works the hardest actually I've seen in metal or rock, because just releases album after album, does tour after tour. It's just crazy. But yeah, that's cool. I would see that for sure. I like Metal Church. I'm not like the biggest fan of Metal Church. I'm a huge Manowar fan, of course. I would see that probably just for Ross the Boss, and alone. I'd go see that. Absolutely. They probably play a couple Manowar tunes too. Wouldn't be surprised. Speaking of them, wait a second. Okay, watch new Manowar lineup perform in Brno, Czech Republic. Okay, well they have Michelangelo Badio, and I think that was a good choice. I think that's cool. I like Michelangelo. I've played along with his instructional videos a bunch. I have one of his. And his former bandmates. Instructional video, and Nitro's, Nitro's first album, or was it their second? Which one was? Yeah. OFR, their first album. I think it's their first album. It's quite an album to listen to. It's like, you'd almost call it like hair metal meets power metal meets thrash metal with, dare I say, one of the first times a power metal song had a blast beat in, what is it called? Machine Gun Eddie. That's right. I mean, it's like a really weird album. It's like, it's so over the top, and strange. It's like, and it's cheesy and it's easy to make fun of like Freight Train in the video and stuff, but it's fun. Who cares? Creator, Michael Sweet. Let's see. No, I'm not going to read that. that other one. Because I don't care. I don't care. Oh, Winger. Okay. John Schaefer. Here we go. Some edgy content. Cooperate with Capitol Riot investigators. Great. Okay. Whatever. Oh, let's see. Rick Wakeman. Okay. Here's one I want to talk about. This is one I want to talk about. So, okay. Here, Def Leppard's Joe Elliott guest on new version of Ghost Spillways, which they did as a single, which has sort of like an old school Def Leppard like triangle and like logo on the bottom and stuff. This is what I have to say about the song. I actually like it. I'm not a big fan of Ghost. I like their first album. I heard a couple of their other albums. I'd go see them live because just the show itself, But some reason that song works. It's cool. It's kind of AOR-ish too. Of course, I like it. that was like my phase for the last like 6-7 years. But now I'm in like this weird punk phase, so that's kind of the opposite. Whatever. I get into these weird phases. Where's some more headlines I can read that are interesting like that, or that I have something to say about. Why? Okay. I'm going to go back up. I kind of scrolled down. This mouse is acting a little weird. Maybe it needs a new battery. I don't know. D. Snyder says it's frustrating when people assume he supports all politicians who use "we're not going to take it" at campaign rallies. Okay, well, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know what I would say. I don't know. Politics, I still watch political videos all the time, but I'm just like so done with talking about it and like being involved with it in any way. That said, I'm going to say stuff once in a while that comes up, and just like, I'm so just burnt out. Just like, it's like after doing a really hardcore workout and like drinking a bunch of coffee and sugar and then working out and then like crashing from all three at once. It's like, that's how I feel about politics right now. Pantera's concert in Vienna canceled. Okay, well, we can talk about that a little bit. Stupid, There's a lot of stuff that he said that's, probably wouldn't pass muster today, even if was not seen as racist at the time because of how things are now. You're not supposed to say certain things. Now, at the same time, there are some things that he said that were kind of like, even I would not support too, but I don't buy the idea that having him play a show in Germany or Austria is going to like I said before with a person thing, like it's going to lead to the rise of the new Third Reich or something. I mean, the drummer of Pantera, quote unquote Pantera, is Jewish. So, I mean, it's just stupid. I mean, it's just like, why do we have to like, I don't know. I just think it's dumb. Whatever. I've never been a huge Pantera fan, but like, I think just let them play. Just shut the hell up and let them play. Do you have to do some kind of disclaimer or something like Disney Plus is doing or whatever before the show or whatever? It's like, or he has to come out and apologize a fifth fucking time or whatever. I don't know. Ozzy Osbourne isn't a commercial. I don't care. Judas Priest. Okay. Wow, that was just the other day that they announced that Ghost Def Leppard thing, which I like. I like it. I really do. Foreigner, I missed them, actually. They were going to play right as COVID hit, and they canceled. If it would have been like 2 days before that Foreigner played, I would have seen this, quote-unquote Foreigner, or whatever you want to call them, the cover band, or whatever you want to call them. I mean, I guess Mick Jones is still part of it sometimes, but I would have seen him. I almost went. because like one of my ex-girlfriends, I was like listening to Foreigner at the time. I was like, and we had broken up, and it was like, it was, and we were like, oh, you know, I would have been like really like emotional at the show because like we had just broken up at the time. Blackie Lawless. Okay. Yeah. Mike Portnoy confirms he's slightly involved in Dream Theater's recently lost but not forgotten archives, which I've actually bought 2 of the albums. I bought the Deep Purple one and the Iron Maiden one. Did I buy a third one? I don't think so. And you know, the Iron Maiden one, mixed feelings about some of it, but I overall liked it. For people to know, it's basically where back in 10, 15, 20 years ago, Dream Theater would play whole albums by bands like Dark Side of the Moon. They did Iron Maiden's Number of the Beast, and they did Deep Purple's Made in Japan, which actually I think I liked that the best. It's pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting. Some parts you just like, dude, get that right. Like, for example, Invaders, they don't play like the beginning riff right, in my opinion. But then there's other parts they do arguably kind of cooler than some of the original stuff in a way. Bruce Dickinson is very proud. Speaking of that, Bruce Dickinson is very proud of his upcoming solo album. I think it's going to be quite special. Well, we'll see. I think the production will probably be pretty good, actually, compared to his band that he's in. This band called Iron Maiden. Tool frontman. Okay, Jiu-Jitsu. Wow, that's interesting. Motley Crue's first rehearsal with John 5 was fucking epic. Okay. Carmine Apiece. Streaming destroyed the music business. Okay. Well, if you say so. I mean, there's concerts still. People are still releasing albums. I don't know what you mean by destroyed. It depends on what you mean. Ex-Queensryche singer Jeff Tate on his open heart surgery is quite an eye-opening experience for me. I've been really harsh on Jeff Tate. I don't know if I talked about this already in a previous episode, but last few years he's really been kicking ass. Like his shows that I see on YouTube, and they are live. I know because they all sound. It's unless he's recording in a studio the night before, and they're all different. Because there's backing. The backing vocals are definitely piped in some of the time, but his main vocals are definitely not, and he is really sounding good nowadays. I hope he does one more like epic concept album with a metal band that's well produced and like is critically acclaimed and stuff in the next few years. I think he deserves to do that. Honestly, he's really made up for a lot of whatever was going on like 11, 12 years ago, because he just seems like a different person in interviews too, honestly. Like, I don't know if he was like on like an alcoholic or he got therapy or something, but he just sounds so different. He just seems different. Anvil announces spring 2023 U.S. tour begins pre-production for the album. They're actually playing here. I might go see him. It's at a club that I've had some differences with in the past, and I really don't want to support him. I'm not going to go into why. But I probably will go. Let's see if there's anything else before I get to the interview, which will probably be recorded separately because it's about 4 o'clock on Sunday. And we record this interview at 6:30, which I should probably bring up my Zoom pretty soon. New Judas Priest, Avatar, blah, blah, blah. Let's see if there's anything interesting. All these old bands, okay. Yeah, okay, we already know that. Mr. Bungle, oh, cool. Didn't know they were touring. I might go see that. Joe, I just like the really crazy ones. Joe Lynn Turner defends his controversial views. The difference between conspiracy and the truth is about 6 months. Now, that is a big time meme right now, and there's some truth to it, honestly. At least 50% of that is probably true. I mean, they'll say something and it'll be a joke, and then it'll come out that it happens. And it happens. It doesn't only happen with conspiracy stuff. It happens with other shit too. So I mean, it's just that's kind of the world, the clown world, as they call it, that we're living in. So I like that. Of course, I don't want to read the comments. They'll probably piss me off because I'm staying away from comments. Opeth. Jeff Beck. Okay. Yeah, Jeff Beck was great. Let's see. Wow. So this is funny because Journey's Jonathan Cain sues Neil Scone. Then he appears on stage with him. It's so weird, man. Asan has a new album or a new EP, which, yeah, I don't know. I like some of his stuff, but I don't know. It's kind of an acquired taste. I'll just say that. I kind of like it, but it depends. I like the first album. His first solo album I really liked. Probably because it was more black metal, but still I liked it. 50th anniversary of Dark Side of the Moon. Again? They're releasing something again. Jesus Christ. Rolling Stone. I skipped ahead. Let's see what this has on it that the other one didn't. Oh, maybe they didn't do that, or did they? I thought they did this already. 50th anniversary. Like, what's the? Why? It has performances of it. Yeah, you already released some of these performances. Why? Why buy more stuff that you don't need? That was me talking to myself. I'm not going to buy this. I don't know. Blu-ray, I guess. What a new mix. How many times do you have to buy an album? It's kind of ridiculous. It's silly. Rolling Stones have joined TikTok. Oh, that's great. Evanescence makeup set. Oh, is there anything else I want to read here? Okay. Paul Stanley admits he's lying. That's all I got to say. Paul Stanley doesn't rule out one-off Kiss concerts after final end of the road show or whatever. Death to All featuring Gene Hoglan and Steve DiGiorgio. What is that? Is that a Death cover band with like the later stuff? I might have to go see that. Custom jewelry from Iron Maiden's used guitar strings. I have a pick that was used by Uli John Roth, I believe, and I also have like his signature and stuff, his autograph. Former Jeff Tate explains why he started getting tattoos later in life. Well, I'm probably going to get more tattoos. Let's see. Anything more? Danzig sings Elvis, which I would probably go see that. Let's see. Wow, this is going really far. Is there another page? I thought there were more pages on here. Anyways, okay, here we go. There's an Alice Cooper tour. I'm probably going to see that. Uli John Roth, speaking of that. What else is there? Is there anything else that's cool? Anything else that's cool on here? I don't think so. I think we're going to cut that there. Wow, we're already at a half an hour. Jesus. So, yeah, I'll probably be doing more episodes the next couple weeks. I believe my last episode was on July 30th. If I'm really correct on that, I'd probably have to look at my channel, which I'm going to right now, and I'll tell you when the last episode of this podcast was, because that is ridiculous. I would say, at this point, it's pretty silly. It's pretty ridiculous. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, I guess it was 2 months ago. Okay. I thought it was before that. When was the previous episode though? 5 months ago. Wow. That's really silly. But that's not going to be the case anymore. I'm going to try to do it every 2 weeks, every 1 week to 2 weeks, because I have a lot of other stuff I'm doing too, but I'm going to try to interview more bands. So the band that I am interviewing does not have a release yet. That said, they are trying to get the... and let me just look this up. I am going to bring up Zoom so I am prepared when this starts. They're called Lenax or Lenax. I will get the proper pronunciation once this starts. So, black metal band from Nashville, Tennessee. I really like, I'm just going to say, I really like interviewing black metal bands. I just think, that's more something pure about that in a certain way that's, that I like that to be the case. So, that's why I'm doing. Oh shit! Is it still recording? Oh yeah. So that's why I'm doing all these black metal bands. It just kind of works out that way because I've had a few like metalcore bands and gent bands and stuff do want an interview, and I'm just like, yeah, I can't do anything I don't listen to. I just can't, And I know some people would be like, well, you got to get your name out there, blah blah blah, do more stuff you don't like and stuff like that. I mean, there are exceptions to both those genres, but I'm just saying genres that I don't like as much, I will not, touch because I just don't have the expertise either. I don't pretend to sit here and know everything about metal and stuff like that. Like, well, sometimes I do, but sometimes I pretend I do. But no, I don't because I don't, and I don't know about certain genres that much. I don't even know that much about black metal nowadays. I mean, I only first heard Watain like a month ago. Behemoth I heard months back too. I do like Watain quite a bit actually. I bought a couple of their albums. And that band's already like 25 years old. I'm talking about like newer bands. I'm probably going to ask about that because I do need to get updated. And there's just so many bands out there. My friend always texts me all these bands like he's listening to. I'm just like, I don't even have the time to look at all of them, but I try to when I can, So I do like black metal because there is like a continuity to it that I think has just this integrity to it that a lot of other genres don't, in the same way, in the way that I like aesthetically and, I'm not going to say ideologically per se, but like, I just like a lot of it, I like forests and, castles and darkness and, snow sometimes too. I like a little bit of that. I like a little bit of, magic and wizards and witches, goblins, demons sometimes. Yeah. It's like a cult, So I like black metal, not because of that. I'm just saying like this, just the aesthetic appeals to me. Not always, Sometimes it doesn't, and I think punk and black metal have so much in common. I might do a separate episode about that because. Punk and black metal are kind of like, I consider the Norwegian like black metal scene of like the early 90s to be like the second punk. I can go into that. I did an article on my Mattowarrior site. That was one of the first articles I wrote. But I'm not going to, it's kind of embarrassing now to talk about that article. I'm going to do an actual episode explaining what I mean. And actually I was mistaken. My last episode, I think it was actually in November. But anyways, so before we get to the interview, I'm going to play a couple of clips from Lenax and then we'll get into the interview. And hope you enjoy. This was a great interview. A lot of interesting subjects. That's what I always like to do with my interviews on this podcast. It's going to continue to be that way. So enjoy. right, so there's Metal Warriors Metal Madness, and we have Jay from the band. How do you pronounce the name?
It's Lenax.
Oh, okay, it's Lenax. Okay, just wanted to get it right. So, and describe the genre or subgenre of what Linux is about, I guess.
Yeah, so we are a studio black metal band. Originally, kind of the idea was to be a solo project, but then I started collaborating with people. So, depending on how you look at it, it's either a solo project with collaborators or it's an international project. Like my bass player is from Greece, for example, and we've never met, but we trade files. He's a great guy, and my logo was drawn by a guy in the Ukraine, and sometimes I get riffs from people and I give riffs to people. But as far as genre wise, I would say we're a black metal band, sticking with dark themes, cosmic horror, a little bit of the typical Left Hand Path satanic stuff, but more metaphorically speaking. There's not going to be a whole lot of light the candles, hail Satan, in the music, because that's not going to be what's reflective of me as a human. Sorry, I'm stumbling a little bit.
Oh,
Can
that's
we
all
edit
good.
that out? I do stutter a little bit. Sorry.
Oh, it's all good. So, when did you get started into music?
So, interestingly, I've been in and around music probably my whole life. So, when I was a kid, my dad would take me to his friends' houses, and I'd see like some random hippie guys playing guitar really loud, and that was really cool. My dad wasn't a musician, but he was a rock and roll fan. And so always gave me an appreciation for rock and roll trivia. He would say things like, "Hey, did you know Jimi Hendrix played guitar left-handed?" And when you're 6 years old and you've never heard of Jimi Hendrix before, that's really cool. So even though Dad wasn't a musician, he gave me that love for rock and roll. But actually, it was my uncle Chris. So my uncle on my mom's side of the family, he played guitar and he would sing, and I noticed that here's a person that I know that can play music, and it just seemed like a magical thing. You've got sounds that are just coming out of an instrument that not everybody can do, but also had this crowd interaction. If other people could sing along, or if they were smiling, or if they clapped when you were done. So really, those two men, my father and my uncle, kind of got me into music. I'm still a hobbyist all these years later, but it's just something that brings joy to my life, and sometimes I can bring joy to other people, even if the music is a little bit loud and noisy.
Oh yeah, definitely can relate there. So what got you into metal in general?
So metal in general, I'm also going to blame my dad for this. So I'll show my age a little bit. The Ozzy Osbourne album "Bark at the Moon" came out when I was probably about 10 years old. And at age 10, you're still kind of listening to mom and dad's music, right? And so I'm listening to whatever's on the radio, Journey, Fleetwood Mac. And don't get me wrong, I still listen to Journey and Fleetwood Mac. But my dad gave me this cassette tape of Ozzy Osbourne's "Bark at the Moon," and it fucking blew me away. So that was definitely my taste for metal, and I started getting things a little bit heavier. And then, of course, you get into junior high and high school. In the '80s were really big in the back patches. Metallica T-shirts, Slayer T-shirts, and nowadays you say Metallica and it sounds like dad rock. But at the time,
Yeah.
if the heaviest thing you were listening to was fucking Motley Crue, okay, and then you heard Metallica, it blew your fucking mind. And the big thing with them, like everybody knows now, but having lived it, I can tell you, there was no Metallica on the radio. There was no Metallica on MTV. There was just nothing, and all you saw was these kids in school with Metallica T-shirts. You got like, man, I want to hear this band. And the first time you hear it, you're like, man, what the devil is this? And then over time, things got heavier and heavier for me. And some people, when they get old, they kind of mellow out. I discovered black metal kind of late in life, really not until about 5 years ago. I heard of black metal, but never really gave it a second listen. Um, and I think with any kind of heavy music, um, it takes your ears tuning into it a little bit. The first time you hear Amon Amarth, it just sounds like a bunch of Cookie Monster vocals. But when you listen to Amon Amarth long enough, I can understand every word that Johann says the first time hearing a song, and that's an acquired taste. And with black metal, people always talk about the emotion of the songs, and that's very true. Sometimes you hear a song, it just kind of kicks you in the dick, or it makes you feel this despair, and that's a communication from the musician to the listener, and I find that really cool. Where I don't like to end in a state of despair with my music because I don't feel like I have a bad life. I've lived a certain amount of pain. I've had, my struggles with substances. I've had my struggles with jobs and relationships and all that. But I was able to muscle through it with, willpower and fucking determination. So the emotions that I'm trying to communicate through heavy music, yes, we're going to process the despair. We're going to process the pain, and we're going to be angry about it, but we're also going to be, uplifted and strong throughout it. And so the album's kind of telling a story, and it's not biographical by any means. Uh, the work is kind of science fiction. There's vampires and werewolves and aliens, and there's all kinds of shit in there. But they're all metaphors. They're all metaphors for the things that we struggle with. And a lot of people just kind of accept the fate that they're given. And I think metal music has always been there as a way to kind of encourage people. Even the big four, in the 80s, your Anthrax, Slayer, Megadeth, Metallica. If you poke around that music long enough, you'll find things in there that are uplifting. You'll find things that are sad. Fade to Black is sad. Hit the Lights is exciting. So you can really kind of choose the message that you want to get out of that music.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I really like black metal a lot because it does kind of have this atmosphere that is not in like brutal death metal or something like that. It has like this romanticism, dare I say. So I'm a big fan. So
Absolutely.
like, what do you say would be your influences, especially like in black metal?
You know, Lately, I think the biggest influences to me are 1349 and Watain. They're very different bands, but they're both established bands, but they're also still going, and they're able to make music that has that sense of despair, but still has a sense of production. Um, there are bands that I really, really respect that I don't really consider influences because maybe as a guitar player I'm not that good. Like Emperor, for example, is mind blowing, as is Enslaved. Um, and I love those bands, but I think they're above me technically. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to, we'll have to hear what you're coming out with, of course, to be the ultimate judge of that, I guess. But yeah, I mean, as far as like yeah, I like all those bands pretty much. I just bought a new or another Watain album too, so I can definitely relate to that. What are some sounds that you really don't like as far as black metal goes? I don't know. I just thought of this question for some reason.
no, it's a valid question. So here the one thing I really dislike is if there's a modern band that is trying to sound like an early 90s band that may have recorded on a 4-track analog tape. Um, because at the time, maybe that 4-track analog tape was all that they had. And I say the following comment with caution because you don't want to really shit on somebody else's art. But in my opinion, I feel it's a little bit dishonest to try to make your sound lo-fi when you've got the ability to make it cleaner. You can record in your bedroom with a cheap microphone and get on YouTube and learn how to mix and get something going. And the reason why I say that with caution is I do recognize that there is a need for the noise, especially if that noise makes sense by the artist. So I do make that comment with reservation. It just doesn't resonate with me. For example, I love me some Dark Throne, but I can't listen to the early albums in their entirety. There'll be a song here or there that I absolutely love that are absolutely in my playlists. In the Shadow of the Horns and Quintessence, probably my favorite of the early Dark Thrones. But to me, it just doesn't speak to me. Same thing with Emperor. Emperor's first album was definitely a second wave black metal, noisy album, but then Emperor kind of progressed into this well produced, progressive, masterpiece of a band. As far as that, I would say there's no real other sounds that turn me off. I don't mind the keyboards. I don't mind the symphonics. I don't mind the folk instruments. Just the only thing to me is if a band is trying to sound lo-fi, maybe I need to understand where that artist is coming from.
Yeah, definitely. I think when bands fail the most, in my opinion, at lo-fi is when they're doing it with digital, though. That's when I think when they're trying to replicate the tape sound with digital, I think that's like, not going to mention names, but certain musicians that have just kind of they used to have good producers and stuff, but then they kind of downgraded their production. Well, various bands, classic metal bands have done that. It just doesn't sound right. I think they just would be better off just producing something normally instead of going that route, unless they are using analog. I don't know. I find the analog like lo-fi thing tolerable, but like digital, it just doesn't. It feels weird to me.
Well, I'll tell you what, and that's kind of what I said about being, what sounds to me dishonest. But my encouragement, I'll tell you what, if there's a listener out there that likes lo-fi, listen, man, get yourself an analog 4-track recorder from eBay. I'm sure they're cheap. And honestly, if you were to do that, if you were to put an analog tape into your band's room and make an old school record that way, I think I would have a lot of respect for that. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, I think Mayhem had what was that album in 2007? I forgot the name of it. They tried to sound like old, lo-fi kind of Mayhem. I don't know if you recall that one.
Not off the top of my head.
Yeah, they had it
Mayhem is definitely, I mean, you can't take away, their impact and despite losing Euronymous and Dead, a lot of the members of Mayhem now were in Mayhem back then. So to me, it's okay. It's the same band. But yeah, I would love to see Mayhem live. I missed them when they came through the States last time. I would absolutely love to see that band.
Yeah, I saw them. They're pretty good. I think there was going to be, who was with them? That really controversial. Who was that? The two-piece one? God, I can't remember the name. I'm probably, God, who was it? They got in a lot of trouble, that band. The band that opened for them, it's two people.
Okay.
God, I can't remember the name. I might have to edit that out. That's ridiculous. There's so many bands I like of different genres, so I get, sometimes I do confuse the names a little bit. Now, it'll probably come to me pretty soon. What do you think of, because I've been listening to him a little bit lately, but what do you think of, maybe we shouldn't go there, but what do you think of Burzum?
See, I knew you were going to say that. I really did. So honestly, it's tough for me. It really is because, my partner is Scandinavian, and some of my occult interests have included Norse mythology. And I've tried to approach that in a way that is not, like a modern American Wiccan neo-pagan, like, hey, I'm a Wiccan and I learned the runes. So let me stick the runes inside of Wicca and call it a system. To me, that's incredibly dishonest. So, runes uh, as a writing system are literally an alphabet. There were some magical uses for them, but if you look at it historically speaking, um, aside from the last 100 years, uh, most of runes were just a alphabet. It was like taking the letters A, B, and C and calling them a divination tool or a magical tool. And don't get me wrong, there are some historical magical things from that, but most magical uses of runes are modern. And the reason why I say that is being interested in runes gets you this immediate need to issue a disclaimer. And so you'll pick up a book on Norse mythology or a book on runes, and these scholarly authors have to go through the effort of saying, we're not white supremacists, because, maybe the Nazis used the Sowilo rune for their SS, or maybe modern day skinheads utilize, certain runes. And so that's always difficult because that letter system and that mythology has far, far predated white supremacists. And because of that hardship, I have a hard time even getting into Varg and his music, despite the fact that most people would agree that he was very, very influential in those early days. So yeah, honestly, man, I don't have much of an opinion on Burzum because I probably haven't given them a proper listen. Um, and I don't know what people would think of that, but you're supposed to like music because you like it, and it's presented a hard spot for me trying to pursue certain spiritual elements. Like one of the early versions of my band logo had some runes in it, and I was like, oh, I can't use that rune because that looks like a Nazi symbol, and that's ridiculous. I shouldn't have to do that. But as you've probably seen, I don't have runes in my band's name anymore. And I feel like I had to make a compromise because some people want to be bigots, and that's not necessarily fair. But
Yeah,
the last thing I want to do is put out my music and somebody sees a rune, that's
yeah.
hundreds and hundreds of years old, and think, wow, this guy Jay and his band must be all about white supremacy, and we're not.
Well,
So,
it's kind of funny because I used to have this profile photo on a dating site, and I dated this girl, and I had Thor's hammer in the picture, and she's like, "I thought you were a Nazi at first." I'm like, "I'm not
oh,
even wearing anything on my, other than that, like that really would give anything like that away." But I mean, that I would be. So it was just kind of weird, but yeah, of course I'm not. But I'm just saying, like, it's kind of funny because yeah, one of my Ensiferum shirts, I think it has a sun wheel on it, or something like that. I don't think it's a sun wheel; it's something else. Pardon my ignorance of that. I just recently got more into some of that stuff. So as far as like the Norse mythology and everything, so. But I know a Bathory album has some controversial stuff, and then they had Under the Ruins, on Twilight of the Gods, songs like that. So I think at a certain point, some of those guys like to play around with it just to like provoke. But then after a certain point, unfortunately, people took it seriously. Same with the punks, because punks wore swastikas and stuff in Britain, and then the Nazi punks like took it seriously and stuff. So it's kind of sad, but it is
well,
what it is.
it is, and it's a minority of people. And I personally don't have very much Scandinavian in me. I'm primarily Irish and Scottish, but some people take their pride, in their ancestry as an excuse to be exclusive or exclusively oppressive to other people. Um, and that's kind of funny because I'd made a post a couple days ago on one of my social accounts that was just basically talking about, I think I was talking about the Ukraine war, and despite the fact that I've got very dark elements in my lyrics, and like I said earlier in the interview, I've got some borderline satanic imagery in my lyrics. At the same time, I'm a positive person, and most metalheads are. If you go to a metal concert, we're not walking around trying to stab each other. We're just a bunch of dudes with beards and tattoos that like loud music. And it's a very family-like atmosphere, despite the fact that if you take the music by itself, it sounds aggressive. Um, and it doesn't make any sense if you want to pursue anarchy, uh, you're not going to thrive. If I say I am a being of my own creation, and I don't have to follow any laws, and I want my neighbor's car, so I shoot my neighbor in the head and I take his car. Can I at the end of the day say that I have lived my own life? Well, for a few minutes until the police come and take me away. And how well am I going to be fulfilling my destiny, fulfilling my will, so to speak, to use a magical word? How well am I enacting my will from a jail cell where I have no rights?
Right.
So a certain amount of cooperation is needed for society. And that's what I think some people don't understand. It is most people, when they break away from mainstream religion, they go through their rebellious phase. They go through a rebellious phase where I need to wear black t-shirts every day. I need to wear a pentagram. I need to tell everybody I'm an atheist, and they feel this need to rebel. And that's fine and that's healthy, but then you get past that and you grow. And most metalheads that I've run into are past that. Yeah, they still might wear their pentagrams, they still might wear their black t-shirts, but they're generally nice people, as scary as you might think that we look. And I'm probably the least scary looking metalhead that I know.
Yeah, I think a lot of people go through the phase of rebellion, in their late, like for me, it was like in my late teen years, I bought the Satanic Bible, and I still I kind of like a lot of what LaVey had to say and stuff, but like I would never consider myself a Satanist. But I did at the time, I was kind of rebelling against some things, and I had some weird experiences that I took too seriously that I was kind of an agnostic or atheist at that point. So it kind of appealed to me even more with LaVey. But then kind of got out into some other stuff, Like now I'm more interested in chaos magic and stuff like that. But anyways.
No, that's definitely very interesting. Yeah, no, I would definitely consider myself an agnostic, or I've definitely used the term chaos magician. And like you said, despite liking some of the things that LaVey said, I would probably hesitate to call myself a Satanist. But it really depends on how you define that. If you define that as a person that believes in personal responsibility, rather than the fear of a imaginary God to scare you into being a good person, then sure, that could be from a point of view a satanic way of thinking. Because the other side of that is if you need the fear of God, or you need the fear of hell to scare you into not stealing your neighbor's car, right? To scare you into, just being a generally good person, well, that is a reflection of you as an individual. And I think if you can be a positive member of society without that fear, I think that says an awful lot.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so switching gears here, I guess, I just have a list of questions, but we could definitely circle back to anything you want to talk about too. How would you say that? I just had this written down, and I figured I'd ask it for another band that I asked this to, but I like asking this question just to see where people are at with not in a political way or anything. Don't worry about that, but how would you say recent world events have influenced you in the past few years as far as your project and stuff?
So a lot of what I'm writing about is really a convergence of life experiences. I think any artist can say that. World events lately, are just confusing. When you see people vote on a political issue and they're directly along party lines, that also seems dishonest. You can't tell me that, you took this hot button issue, in the US, maybe say it's the Senate, right? You can't say you took this hot button issue to the Senate and all of the Republicans agreed with the Republican talking points, and all of the Democrats agreed with the Democratic talking points with no dissension. That to me is dishonest. Any clump of humans that are actually making up their minds, you would have some dissent on either side, and you would have a majority vote. And now we have actual democracy. Um, so a lot of that does affect me. There is this idea that corporations can control you, and I don't mean that in a conspiracy theory kind of way. I mean, just take a look at how often your smartphone dings at you or reminds you to post on something or reply to a comment. I mean, that is some form of control because it's keeping you psychologically hooked to that phone, so maybe it can advertise a product to you. Um, and that sort of political maneuvering happens on a large scale where, you might have a bunch of people in a country hate a bunch of people in another country that they've never met. And I'm sure we do it too. I remember the first time I went to China and I was surprised to walk around and see people in clothes instead of wearing like, Chairman Mao uniforms and marching, like I thought that a communist country, everybody's marching around, everybody is wearing gray. Nobody is buying and selling because it's all no. China is a very capitalist country that has a communist government, um, and I realized that wow, what have I been told about China that's not right? I work with a bunch of engineers from Mexico, and if I say I worked with Mexican coworkers, the first thing that a typical American is going to think is somebody who cuts the grass or somebody who paints. Like, no, I'm working with mechanical and electrical engineers from Mexico, and when I see pictures of their houses have grass and swing sets in the back. It's not like the entirety of Mexico is a desert, and everybody in that country, either works for or runs from the drug cartel. So the way that influences me is this idea of information control kind of seeping into daily life. And again, it's not like a conspiracy theory. I don't think that there's some kind of microchip in the COVID shot that's going to make me a slave for the government. I mean, that's a bunch of bullshit. But it's the subtle things. It's how are things advertised? How is the war advertised? How is environmental change advertised? How are new electrical cars advertised? Because, electric cars, depending on which political clump of people you in, are either going to be the thing that saves the earth or the thing that destroys it. And everything in politics is so extreme in either direction. And what I've learned as a musician, as an occultist, just as a human being in general, I've realized that things aren't black and white, but there are these gradients. There's all kinds of shades of gray in between. And that includes the truth. And so how it's affecting my lyrics is, I've got a song that's coming out at the end of the year. I'm kind of saving it for the album. That's talking specifically about the war in Ukraine. Um, and the information that's given to the Russian people, for example, the Russian people are starting to finally realize this war is a terrible idea, and the rest of the world is looking on like we are afraid to help with the war because we don't want Russia to push the big red button. And at the same time, despite all of that, the Ukrainian people have just been incredible. I mean, President Zelensky, I think, is a hero for the world, and the Ukrainian people are a hero for the world. Um, and it's hell. It's absolute hell. And again, getting back to that idea of music that touches on evil but leaves you in a positive place. If I loved war and I loved death, I would look at what's going on in Ukraine and just be happy that people are dying and burning alive, and and being crushed under buildings. And I would just think that's the greatest thing. And I think anybody who thinks that's great is a fucking psychopath. I hate the war. And I really believe that Ukraine is going to pull through. And if I was a praying man, I would pray that nobody pushes that big red fucking button, because that will really change things for a lot of people.
Oh
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, anyways, on some minor notes, I guess. So, what's the scene like in Nashville, like for black metal and for metal nowadays?
It's interesting. It was probably a lot better earlier. I mean, not just before COVID, but I mean, back when MySpace was relevant for 2 or 3 years, Nashville was really thriving. You could throw together a show and people would arrive, and that was the MySpace era. The post-COVID era, things are really just kind of coming out of the woodworks. I've lived in the area for a few years, but I've really been keeping to myself. But I've started getting out and meeting some of the local bands. I wouldn't say there's a black metal scene. We've got a handful of black metal bands. We really do. Um, and a lot of us are kind of talking behind the scenes about trying to put on some more shows. There's a lot of cool venues. Some bigger than others. One of the coolest things that I went to recently, it's outside of Nashville by a couple hours. There's a guy named Zach Moonshine. He's got a radio show, an internet radio show, and he decided to put together this music festival. And it was his first ever music festival, and it was something like 30 bands and, like, I don't know, about 1,000 people. I mean, it wasn't huge, but at the same time, the first show I put on had about 5 people there, and so his 1,000 is probably way better than I did. And Zach's really cool because, um, you know, he's a music fan through and through. When he finds a band that he loves, he lets them know. And so I'm looking forward to working with him. When we get our single out, to help make some noise about it. But I guess to answer your question in fewer words, I would say that the scene is growing. A lot of people are kind of coming out of the woodwork post COVID, but some bands didn't make it. Some bands, once shows dried up, they just kind of packed up. They didn't have a lot of motivation left.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I had some family that lives in Nashville for a while, but I never went down there to visit them when they were there for a short period. But I've heard some good things about it. So as far as musicians go, so but, yeah. So I guess how did you record this album, or as far as your album goes, how did you record it? Like, what kind of I always like to ask people questions about gear and stuff like that. Like, how was it recorded?
Yeah, so glad you asked. So I've got a simple USB interface on my laptop. I'm sitting in front of it right now. And I've got my guitar plugged directly into it. So I'm doing what's called DI recording. So as an older guy, I really like mic'd recordings. And so, for example, if you were going to play the demo of Greater Forces that I have on YouTube, that demo was done with mics in front of a cabinet, but I'm re-recording that today. So the whole reason for using what's called a DI recording is you can't undo effects that you put on the guitar. So if you record it with distortion and you decide you want a different distortion, that's it. You're fucking done. Or if you have delays, reverbs, anything like that. So I'm recording directly in with that. Drum wise, I'm doing drum program with Easy Drummer, and I bought like this drum kit add on with it, and they're real drum samples. But what I'm doing is I'm basically, my process goes like this. I set up a drum loop first, and that drum loop will have different sections in it, like a verse and a chorus and a bridge. And then based on the energy of that drum loop, then I start putting down some riffs. And then lyrically speaking, normally I have an idea. Sometimes that idea came out of another creative work. But I kind of let the music grow in those three stages. The drum loop, see what that inspires for the guitarist, see what the guitarist inspire for lyrics. And I don't always go back and revise underneath. And you'd think that I would, but typically, once I have my drum loops and I have my guitar riffs down, they're fairly stationary. And vocals also through the USB interface. My buddy Neil, who's doing some mixing for me, actually loaned me a microphone, so I'll be doing some vocals here. And and yeah, everything is at home. I like I said, I've got a bass player in Greece, so what I do is I send him my tracks. I said, here's the drums and the guitars, and and then he basically lays the bass in the same way. He takes a DI, a direct input, and sends it back to me, and then we mix them all together.
That's a great process. I actually do that myself. So pretty much, I have a drummer that I was working with from South Africa. They moved to UK, so I send my stuff to him, and he comes up with the drums. He's really good, Glenn Wellman. I'm gonna call him up. So I don't know if you've heard about him.
What's his name again?
His name is Glenn Wellman.
Doesn't ring a bell.
He's actually on Fiverr too. Really
Okay.
good, really good drummer. Yeah, so I guess I got some more questions for you here. So I like asking people this one. If you had 5 albums that you could recommend to people that you consider underrated, which would you recommend?
Ooh, underrated.
Yes.
Um, that's a fantastic question. I like this. Okay, so first of all, I know I've been so I just made a post today about a band called Mattowarrior. I believe they're Swedish. They've got this fantastic album called 1557. Oops, I played it on my phone a minute ago. So 1557 from Mattowarrior, definitely great stuff. Um, I'm kind of going through my playlist worth of stuff here. Underrated. Abath. So Abath, the former lead singer from Immortal, his first record was outstanding. I really liked it, and what was great about him, and it's just self-titled, ABBATH. What's great is, I don't understand the split with that band, and that's unfortunate. But what was great is he was able to still sound like Immortal, but also maybe um, veer off the path a little bit and kind of do his own thing. Um, underrated. The latest Dark Throne album. So I know when people talk Dark Throne, they talk about the Infernal Trilogy. I think of their first records. Astral Fortress, I think, is fantastic.
Yeah, I own a
Um,
vinyl copy, so
yeah, I bought the vinyl copy for my girlfriend as well. Um, there is a band called Jevel, Djevel. I believe they're Norwegian. So we were talking about the emotions that an album can conjure up, and the sounds of this album. It's almost like a piercing, scooped mid-range. But when I heard this sound, it completely and totally floored me. Like I was fucking stuck. How many of it am I? Is that 3 or 4?
I think that's 3. So you got 2 more.
That's 3. Summoner Circle. I'm gonna go with some locals here. So Summoner Circle is they're not a straight black metal band. I believe they consider themselves theatrical. Um, and they have this album called Become None that I really really like. Um, so they're great. I could have prepped this one, my friend.
Oh, sorry about that. I
No,
just
that's
like
all
to
right.
I like to
Most of
pop
the stuff
this
in my
open.
playlist is pretty well known stuff. Some Enslaved, some Gorgoroth, some Emperor,
Hmm.
Mayhem. Um, I think I'll plug 1349 one more time just because I don't know that a lot of people listen to 1349. So they have this album called uh, The Infernal Pathway that I really, really like. So we're talking before about art and how you know people expect a certain communication from a band, and there's this irony among black metal fans, and obviously um, you can't satisfy them all. If a band puts out an album like the first Abath record, that veers off the path, people say, "Oh, well, you know, that veered off the path, so it's not black metal anymore." And if a band sticks to a formula, then they go, "Oh, well, that's good, but it's just like eight generic black metal songs." And so, like, which one is it? Do you want the band to progress, or do you want them to stay to the path? And for me, for a band to be honest and true to themselves, should make their own art and just communicate that. Anyway, that being said, with 1349, I remember reading reviews for this album, and some people were confused because, it was like every song was a slightly different style, and people that didn't know how to take that. I fucking love the record. I think it's great. I think it's artistic. It's got some slow stuff, some heavy stuff. So yeah, does that round out my five?
Absolutely. How about five films that you think are underrated?
Ooh, five films that are underrated. This is fantastic.
Most people I
Um,
interview do like films, thankfully. So I've never
yeah.
met anybody that doesn't. So,
Um, what was that movie with Christian Bale and he was doing karate, but he was shooting guns?
is it science fiction?
Oh yeah, it was science fiction. It's basically The Matrix before The Matrix. Equilibrium.
Equilibrium, yeah.
Equilibrium is fantastic. So it's this post-apocalyptic kind of world, um, and where like emotion was outlawed, and they had these people called the clerics, and the clerics wore like this cheesy 90s like full-length trench coats, and they did karate with their guns. They call it a gun kata, and it was these mathematically arranged shooting patterns where you just knew if you're going to be in a gunfight, you could do these patterns and you would shoot the bad guys even if all the lights were out. Fucking ridiculous concept, but it's really cool if you like cheesy action flicks.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
Underrated films, man. I know I've got four more in the tank.
Hmm.
Big Fish. So Big Fish it's a movie based on the book where this guy is basically a storyteller. And there's a bunch of big names in it. Ewan McGregor's in it. Uh, Steve Buscemi is in it. And what's cool is this guy, as he tells his story, he goes through these flashbacks. And the flashbacks are a very fantastical, dreamlike world. But I absolutely love Big Fish. Not a very high rated movie. Um, bum, bum, bum. Man, I'm probably going to be drawing a blank.
Oh, that's fine.
I apologize for that.
No, that's fine. So, yeah, when is the album coming out, and where can people find your albums and stuff like that?
So the first single is going to be coming out in March. It's going to be a two-song single, and my goal is to write, record, and mix at a minimum one song a month for the next 9 months, with a full length in December. So the first song is called "Of Greater Forces." Easiest place to find me is just on Facebook or Instagram. Lenax Metal, Lenaxmetal, Lenax Metal. All of our social links are going to be the same thing. So that's going to be the Bandcamp. It's going to be the YouTube. So Of Greater Forces is going to come out in March. There's going to be a cover song of the immortal song Tyrants that's going to come out with that.
Oh, cool.
And the full-length album is called Infection, and that is slated for December. And if I can hit my goal of doing a song a month, which, believe it or not, with a full-time job is a steep task.
Oh, it is.
If I hit one song a month for the next 9 months, we will be on target for December.
Well, I would feel, yeah. I mean, I don't. I mean, I definitely know how that is. I've been working on something for 5 years so, with a full time job and all this other stuff. So, um, I suppose this is not in the best order, this question, but what do you think about a live? What would a live lineup or show look like for Lennox?
So interesting question. I originally had this idea that I was going to be studio only and not even worry about a live show. Um, so I got together with a local singer. Um, his stage name is Imperator Mortem, and he actually appears vocally on the new single. And this kid is fantastic, an absolute undiscovered talent. I fucking love him. Um, if I didn't have such a hard charging want to write and sing my own music, I would drop everything and make a band with him. I mean that. But uh, what we have in mind was to get together and basically do a live kind of in the studio version of the song of Greater Forces. We're just trying to get time to do that. Um, and then Neil, who's doing mixing for me, also plays drums. So right now, what we have tentatively said is, because I have a full-time job, I have a girlfriend, and yeah, because I don't have a lot of time, I really can't commit to a band that plays 4 or 5 shows a month. But if I had the interest, and definitely for a CD release show in December, probably going to pull on Imperator, pull on Neil, and grab a couple other guys. There's some other bands in the area that I know and love that I'd love to say, hey, can you come in and play a guitar for me as a second guitar player, and can you play bass for me? And you know, basically, the live show would probably be festivals or one-offs like that. I just physically don't have the free time to commit to much more. But the more I'm playing here in the home studio, the more I want to play out live. It sounds like it's going to be a blast.
Oh yeah, would there be any theatrics involved, or what would the show look like, basically?
You know, I want there to be. If I had the time to get things done, I would love to have a video backdrop that showed some images that were relative to the song. So if it was cosmic horror, maybe there'd be some space and some fucking squid monsters. I don't know. Uh, but I always loved when a band had a visual element. I love a good light show, and light shows don't have to be super expensive. You can have a low budget light show, but if it's timed the right way, it can really add to what you're doing. I haven't really made the decision on the whole corpse paint thing, largely because I'm late to the game. I wasn't in mid '90s Scandinavia music scene, and I'm not Scandinavian. That being said, I've considered the idea. I'll go ahead and let this out. I've considered the idea of using the blue woad face paint that you might see the Scottish warriors wearing,
Oh wow.
and using the blue to make a corpse paint out of. So something that would be representative of my culture and also representative of the genre.
Oh, that's cool. That'd be different,
Yeah.
for real. So yeah, you mentioned squid monsters, and I was just thinking, talking about the science fiction thing. Is it a Lovecraftian thing that you're after, or what's the situation with that? Like, are you into like the Lovecraftian thing at all, or?
Oh, I definitely am. So
Mhm.
the lyrics to the first song have a lot of Lovecraftian ideas to it. Um, so for example, beneath the sands of time, a secret deep within, preserved by great old ones, trapped in a death-like sleep. So that's definitely the first metaphor right out the gate. But then the chorus says, "Step into the realms unknown and behold the cosmic horror you are." So that's the kind of the positive encouragement of it is like, stand up and realize that you are the God of your universe. You might think there's something outside of you, but no matter what you perceive from the outside is inside. So there's a lot of philosophical overlay with that, whether or not you think the universe is an illusion. Um, but the main single from the song, I'm sorry, the main single from the album, Infection, um, it's space oriented, but in a less kind of Cthulhu uh, mythos. There was a an author named Colin Wilson. Colin Wilson basically didn't like Lovecraft and thought he was a hack and thought he could write a Lovecraft story better than Lovecraft did. And he had a series of books. I think one was called The Outsider. And so this theme either came from The Outsider or one of the books in that series, where there's this kind of vampiric parasite from space. So I'm kind of riffing off of that a little bit. So Infection is about these robotic alien pests that can travel through space and time and are infecting humanity. And the song starts off sounding kind of despairing, where humanity is kind of being eaten alive by these parasites. But come to find out, their purpose was to evolve humanity. And by the end of the song, we the humans can now see through space and time, and we can travel through space and time thanks to kind of becoming one with those symbiotes. So that's a little bit veering off of the Lovecraftian path, but kind of sticking with cosmic horror. But as far as science fiction goes, that theme is very prevalent in 2001, more the book than the movie. So in 2001, if you've seen the movie and you haven't read the book, the opening scene is just a bunch of monkeys throwing bones in a monolith, and it's fucking boring, right? You're like, man, what are they doing? Well, in the book, what you realize, the monolith is this alien intelligence that is trying to evolve the consciousness of the apes to the level that we are at now, where we have ingenuity and imagination and free will. And so the song Infection is kind of about that very next level. It's yet another kind of forced evolution from the aliens.
That's cool. Yeah, I was thinking, like, have you ever read? Well, I bought this book a couple of years ago. It was like $80. It was one of the last of the original circle of H.P. Lovecraft, Robert Bloch, called Strange Eons. I thought about writing some lyrics about it. It was from 1978.
Cool.
One of the last books, and it takes place in the 70s. It's a pretty cool book. I was wanted to recommend that as a Cthulhu Mythos book that I paid a lot of money for. So, but yeah, that's cool. I mean, that's a fascinating concept. 2001 is one of my favorite movies, especially when I was growing up. So I really like Stanley Kubrick a lot and stuff. So yeah, I guess I'm gonna actually, I did have one more question. Sorry.
Yep.
What does the name come from? What does it mean?
So funny story. I'm a bit of a gamer, and I went to a gaming convention years ago, in 2017, in honor of Gary Gygax, the founder of Dungeons and Dragons. And one of the things that Gary was known to do was to insert his name into different characters, but sometimes he'd jumble up the letters, and his son did it as well. So there's a spell called Tensor's Floating Disc. Well, Tensor is the name Ernest backwards. That's Ernie Gygax's name backwards. So I went to this gaming convention in 2017, and I had to make up a character to play a game. And I took my name, my last name, and I flipped it backwards, and I changed some of the letters. And so really, Lenax is just it's a phonetic and reversed version of my last name. That's all there was to it.
Almost like
so that's been my D&D name for years. And last October, when I got a hair at my ass to take my bedroom creativity and make a band name out of it, I'm like, hey, I bet you this would look cool as a band logo. And I contacted this guy on Fiverr who lives in Ukraine, and he hand drew that logo for me.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I wanted to know about that. I'm actually into gaming too. I keep running into people in this podcast that are actually gamers. It's crazy.
Yeah.
we usually play World of Darkness. Going to play for the first time since the summer because some medical emergencies happened to one of the guys, and we couldn't play for a while. But we're gonna probably do that Wednesday. World of Darkness we usually do, but I've done AD&D as well, but second ed. But yeah, anyways. So yeah, just I guess if you want to reiterate where we can get all the links and stuff, because just in case anyone, I just want you to reiterate where we can get Lenax music and stuff, because I said it way earlier in where it was meant to not meant to go, of course, but
Yeah,
of course
that's fine. So just facebook.com/Lenax Metal, Lenax Metal, and Instagram and YouTube, and when we get there, Bandcamp. So Lenax Metal is going to be the screen name for all.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on the podcast, and we look forward to the album. I'm definitely going to listen to it. A lot of interesting concepts and cool music. But thanks for being on.
Outstanding, Matt. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem.